South Vietnam, the Australian soldier's task of patrolling the jungles, roads and fields becomes a little easier when he remembers the strong backup force which supports him. The frontline man in Vietnam is still the infantry digger, but never far away are the supporting guns, tanks, engineer equipment, communications and supply elements. There is the heavy Centurion tank, which provides accurate, close fire support. Artillery gunners support the war effort with their own brand of heavy firepower. Their gunfire prevents the Viet Cong interfering with our operations and Blankett's attempts to develop his own. Skilled engineers share the intimate dangers of war while undertaking a variety of tasks, including bridge building and road making. Signalmen maintain communications throughout Vietnam and back to Australia, and the signal center at the task force headquarters can be reproduced anywhere in the field. Teletype, telephone and radio links can all be provided from a vehicle-mounted center. The Army's eyes are provided by the reconnaissance squadron. Sioux helicopters are used in target spotting and general reconnaissance, working closely with the infantry. Since 1966, the task force area at Nui Dat has been progressively developed. 3 battalions with their supporting arms and services can now be accommodated, and buildings steadily replace tents. The Vietnam War gave the Armored Corps the chance to further test the armored personnel carrier. It gives the soldier mobility, but maintenance is a never-ending task. The APC, as it's called, is well armed and carries up to 11 fully equipped soldiers protected from small arms fire. Along with a tank squadron, the APCs provide the digger with close fire support. They are air portable and can operate through water. While enemy forces walk miles to mount attacks, Australians often ride from their base into operations. The haven of barbed wire and overhead protection in the support base is hard to duplicate on mobile operations, and the infantryman relies heavily on the APC. A task force headquarters can be readily located in the field to closely control battalions and their supporting arms on large operations. An armored personnel carrier is used as a command vehicle. From here, signals personnel can control all forms of communication. Messages are transmitted between the forward headquarters and the rear headquarters at Nui Dat, and, if necessary, even Australia can be contacted through Saigon within minutes of arriving on the site. A signals center provides a hub of all communications passing into, out, and around the battle zone. Close by, a fire support base will be set up to provide swift artillery response to calls by the infantry. Australian artillerymen and the New Zealand gunners working with them fire as many as 150,000 rounds during a 12-month tour of Vietnam. Accurate fire on call is uppermost in the minds of the gun crews. But there is also the necessity to establish a fire support base which may have to be defended from ground attack, digging trenches, filling sandbags, or rechecking the guns. All are vital. Fire control emanates from the command post, where the target plotting mechanism is the focal point. Artillery fire can tremendously affect the enemy effort, but it must be on time and on target. Light aircraft of the Aviation Corps are an important feature of the Australian support effort. Reconnaissance, artillery spotting, aerial photography or medical evacuation could keep aircraft operating every day for up to 5 hours at a time. The light aircraft are hard work, and maintenance carried out at the Luscombe airstrip at Nui Dat has a high priority. Fitted with rockets of the folding fin type, the Cessnas can engage opportunity targets, but usually call on strike aircraft for enemy engagement. Special instrumentation allows flying at night and in bad weather. The style of the Australian crop dusting pilot is apparent when Cessnas swoop in low, searching for possible artillery targets. Artillery spotting is the major function of Army pilots, who often are the only eyes of the gunners. Descriptions and map references must be carefully noted. The Sioux helicopter carries a pilot and up to 2 passengers and can work from sea level to 14,000 feet. Pilots of strike aircraft are given targets through our Army liaison to the Air Force, using the Sioux pilot as the man on the spot. A drop to treetop level may be required for accurate target indication. Canisters containing white smoke are dropped and explode on impact with the target area. Accuracy is important to the strike aircraft, which may commence their strafing run 5 miles off. The stage is set for a bombing run. The chopper pilot can now assess the extent of the damage caused and, if necessary, adjust the aim of the bombers for their next run. Aerial assault on the enemy is also shared by helicopter gunships of the Royal Australian Air Force. The chopper pilot, in support of the infantry, has a direct radio link to the troops below, and Army signallers relay details of the support required. Twin-mounted miniguns can fire almost 5,000 rounds a minute. Twin-mounted machine guns provide a devastating barrage. It's a consoling thought for the infantryman to have tanks along on an operation. Heavy support from tanks can stifle a powerful pocket of resistance within an enemy camp. But the follow-up search of the ground previously held by the enemy has to be thorough. The possibility of mines and booby traps is a constant psychological hazard. Drills for searching enemy camps are well practiced. When the opening to a tunnel complex is uncovered, the soldiers move with care. The Army's Intelligence Corps record everything of importance. As the infantry penetrate forward, so does intelligence, sifting information on enemy movements and strengths. Every detail recorded will be used to form an overall picture of current Viet Cong activities. Knowledge of enemy equipment is not new, but its recovery is a vital aspect. Captured weapons and ammunition often are of modern Russian or Chinese origin, but some are very primitive and are leftovers from as much as 50 years ago. Everything from bulldozing the tunnels to filling them with latex foam has been used in depriving the VC of his underground hideouts. Explosives are generally used by engineers specially trained for this task. Engineers approach this task with confidence, but at times a tunnel complex has been known to hide a complete regiment. This job is not always simple, and the positioning of the charges takes some time. Mobility on operations requires an efficient supply system. Back at base, Army Service Corps soldiers, combining with the RAAF, maintain a resupply chain which keeps the digger in the field content in the knowledge that his vital needs will be provided. Rations are parceled in 24-hour one-man packs. They may carry anything up to 8 days' supply at a time. Arrival of a resupply mission does give the digger a letter. He forgets about the war momentarily as tensions subside during this period. Water resupply is vital to the soldier in the field. Some, though, get more of a lift with the mail from home. The war goes on, preceded by an orders group with Vietnamese, Australian and American officers. Each must know the exact objective of the other. Australian troops in South Vietnam have mounted many operations alongside local regular and regional force units. Often, transport is supplied by American units, while at times American ground forces may also operate within the Australian area of responsibility. Australian APCs carry both Australian and Vietnamese infantry into the area of a fortified Viet Cong village. A village may have been occupied by the enemy for some time, but following an initial assault, civilians are evacuated before finally clearing the enemy from the area. There's a great advantage in using the armoured corps to mount a fast and effective operation. Troops arrive outside the village, some miles from the task force area, in a reasonably rested condition. Regional forces are commanded by a local Vietnamese officer who joins the Australians in the forming up area. His information is vital to the American advisors and the Australians. He knows the immediate area intimately, and details from his helicopter reconnaissance complete the picture. Now the soldiers can be fully briefed on the operation which is about to commence. Armour gives close support to the infantry, and once the infantry have disembarked, the heavy vehicles move into position to harass the enemy while the Allied troops deploy. Later, they'll provide covering fire as the troops advance on the village. Armour may be allotted to guard possible enemy escape routes while the infantry forces become organized. On-the-spot fire from the tanks can be released the moment any resistance becomes evident in the village. A tank commander has a good view of the country ahead. He'll maintain radio communications with the infantry commander as well as the other armoured vehicles. When the assault commences, accurate supporting fire can be brought down. Radio can be used to call in reinforcements while critical firepower is brought to bear before the final assault. Tanks can be repositioned at the will of the commander. Tank support allows the diggers to advance under close covering fire with a minimum chance of suffering casualties. Tanks and APCs may move right into a village and give covering fire when called upon. Search in depth is necessary. Even in small villages, street fighting is well known to the diggers in this type of operation. All evidence of the enemy in the area will be brought into the open for searching. Even a VC's identification papers may yield an important factor in the latest communist recruiting trends. Prisoners will be treated with respect, while VC injured receive the same treatment as an injured Allied soldier. The work of interrogating the enemy suspects and documenting the captured equipment is very thorough. Electrical and mechanical engineers have the task of recovering vehicle casualties and other damaged equipment from the field for repair in base workshops. They could be called upon to repair anything from a stove in a field kitchen to the generator or steel tracks of a Centurion tank. Not all repairs are carried out in workshops. Some are carried out in the field using a mobile workshop aboard an APC. Spare parts are carried for most types of damaged and worn-out equipment. All members of the APC team, including the driver and crew commander, are qualified tradesmen. Clearance of the enemy from a village calls for the segregation of friendly civilians. But the communist guerrilla looks like any other civilian and can escape a dragnet by hiding his weapon and joining the exodus to a fenced-off area where villages are screened by regular force soldiers. Civilians will be asked about their families and their knowledge of enemy activity in the district. Young men of the right age to be recruited by the VC are always closely questioned, but troops are careful to give civilians due consideration. Cordon and search of a village not seen by the troops before may require the search plan to be constantly extended and amended. Searching diggers are always covered from danger by their mates positioned nearby with weapons at the ready. The Australian Civic Aid Programme is a constant reminder of the overall objectives of the war effort. Winning hearts and minds is both important and appreciated. Both service and civilian doctors and assistants belong to the medical teams whose work in civic aid projects is one of the most effective. The dentist is badly overworked, but his expert hands cope with the fatigue of long hours. Vietnamese medical assistants and health technicians assist the Australians. A technician of the Vietnamese Ministry of Health has qualifications equal to that of an Australian nursing sister. Many forms of medication can be supplied by the Australian teams, and mobile dispensaries are often set up in a village courtyard while the medics are at work. Civic aid includes the resettlement of villagers who may have lost their homes while fighting raged about them. Timber and galvanised iron is supplied through the Australian Civil Affairs Unit based at Nui Dat. A house to live in, food to eat, and a knowledge that Allied forces are ever ready to protect them is an important Australian contribution to the welfare of the South Vietnamese villager. Cooperation is the key word. Australians teach the villagers many building crafts as a requirement of the civic aid program. The aim is not to hand over a completed project. To ensure that the material is appreciated, the local people are expected to contribute their labour. In South Vietnam, good roads are not only a strategic requirement. The people of this unfortunate country must trade to survive. Australian engineer road builders enable trade to go on economically by providing the vital links in the form of well-made roads. More than 100 pounds of explosive placed on the two central piers of a bridge by the VC, and the result? A 100-foot gap in one of the major road links in a province. While Vietnamese overcome the problem by using boats, Australian engineers are faced with the task of assessing damage and replacing the structure. Army engineers are specially trained in bridging and gap crossing. The quickest way to reopen a route is to put in an American floating bridge. The temporary measure allows the engineers more time to consider the technical problems associated with permanent repairs. The American inflating pontoon forms the foundation support for the new bridge. Australians and Americans working side by side can erect a bridge and reopen a route within 24 hours of the disruption. Humps are built on either bank, allowing for the rise and fall of the tide. The whole structure, costing $200,000, can be loaded aboard a convoy of 20 trucks. The completed bridge enables local villagers to once more travel with minimum inconvenience, while also carrying most forms of military equipment. The well-tried Bailey Bridge is used to reopen another vital route. Construction engineers have the use of modern, heavy earth-moving equipment. Water supply in a village is a big boost to morale and an effective hygiene measure. It's a big day for the people of local villages when an Australian windmill and reticulation system is put into operation. New furniture is often supplied for schools by Australian soldiers. These children were born into the war, and most of their parents know little of any other type of life. They like to display their appreciation with a song of praise for the efforts being expended to restore their troubled country. The war in Vietnam has many facets, each of its own importance. Inasmuch as the frontline soldier, the infantryman, must be supported by armor, artillery, engineers, signals, aviation and supply elements, so must the fighting be complemented by compassion. Every soldier is an ambassador. Every gesture of goodwill is a sound foundation for the future.